Hi, I'm Tim. This video is going to be a little different in that I just kind of wanted to talk about something I've mentioned in other videos. The fact that I have an illness that won't go away. But seriously, yeah, how did my getting sick lead to me not only becoming a sim racer but also just a fan of motorsports in general? Um, when I've never been one before, and no one that's in my life regularly is. So I'm not really. It's not really on my scope. It's never been on my scope. Um, and so a little background on how I got from point A to here. Um, so I was an athlete in high school. I played football, played everything I could. I lifted weights every day. Oh, and that continued after high school too. I was in the army. When I got home, I played a lot of hockey. Um, Stayed as active as I could with my friends. As the 20-year-old will. I'm 40. I just turned 40 this past year. And so yeah, so looking back, 20-year-old Tim, 200 pounds, active, fit without trying to be fit. Because there's a difference between sort of being active and just moving all the time, and then there's being mindful of what you eat and structuring your workouts and taking care of yourself. I wasn't doing that, but I was very active. Um, that being said, 20-year-old Tim smoked cigarettes. I drank. I partied a lot. I ate garbage food, and because you're 20, you're invincible. The world, you're immortal. The world's gonna last forever, and nothing can hurt you, right? So whatever. So that happened. That's how I was. But I was very active. Like I said, I played hockey 3, sometimes 5 nights a week. Just I couldn't get enough. I played so much, and I had so much fun with it. But eventually, I had to become an adult, and what that meant was when my wife got sick, or not got sick, she did. That's a different thing. But when my wife was when my wife and I were in our early 20s, I had my first son when I was 20. Very young parent. Don't I don't recommend having a kid that young. I know lots of people had kids a lot younger than 20, but we did, and by within the next couple of years, we would be expecting our second child, and the economy in the late 90s kind of took a dip, and I had not gone to college. I do have a degree now, but at the time college wasn't on my radar. But I needed a way to support my family, and working knucklehead jobs wasn't cutting it anymore. So I went to truck driving school, and I became a semi truck driver, and I did that for 10 years, and I enjoyed it. Not necessarily the time away from home, but I think when you have a job that you're good at, and I was fairly good at it. I logged, I think, 1.4 million miles in 10 years. I never got a ticket. I was in one accident, but that was not really, I wasn't faulted for it. So yeah, I was successful. I worked for the same company for 7 years, and then I worked for a second company when I got too sick to drive. So I had 10 years, 2 companies. I would say it's fairly successful. Most people don't spend that amount of time, I don't think, at most of their jobs. If I hadn't gotten sick, I would probably still be working for the second company, but if I hadn't gotten sick, a lot of things wouldn't have happened. So I mean, I'm not saying that if I could live life without being sick, obviously I would, but there have been some good things that came out of it too. But let's try to structure this a little bit better, a little more chronologically. So I'm driving truck. I start having some symptoms, some bad feelings, some stuff is happening that's telling me something's wrong with my body. But in very stereotypical guy fashion, I'm not going to go to the doctor and I'm just tough it out. We'll just keep on trucking, man, literally. And then it got to the point where I couldn't pass the DOT physical anymore because my eyesight was really wonky. Like the glasses weren't helping, and things were becoming troublesome. So finally went to the doctor. I couldn't be a truck driver anymore though, because you've gotta have that license, and I couldn't pass the physical to keep the license. So now I'm really scrambling. By this time now, my wife and I have 2 boys. They are 7, 10 years old, and now my wife is pregnant for kid number 3, and this is a complete surprise because my wife had cancer. I know this video is about me having an illness. Well, we won the illness lottery in our family. My wife was diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma at the age of 24. It's a very aggressive form of breast cancer that's genetically driven, so it doesn't really care about your age. So if you have women out there in your life and you're watching this video, don't think they're too young. Please check. Make sure they're checking themselves. Make sure they're aware of what their body's doing. That goes for you too, whether man or woman. Make sure you know what your body's doing and listen to what your body's telling you. Because if I had done that, I might not be in the situation I'm in now. And I'll explain that here now. So I'm no longer driving truck. It's 2013. I get diagnosed with an illness called Crohn's disease. It's an inflammatory bowel disease. And what it boils down to is my immune system is constantly targeting areas of my digestive tract. And it's not just your bowels. It can be your stomach. It can be your esophagus. It can be your mouth. They say from gum to bum. And, and unfortunately the details of Crohn's disease, they're kind of gross. And I'm not going to get into them. But there was a point where I was still trying to work. And I had a job I liked. It didn't pay nearly as much as driving truck, but I enjoyed it. But I never felt good. I could sleep 12 hours a night, and I would need 2 pots of coffee just to be exhausted for the rest of the day. And so I wasn't doing real well. And they were putting me on these, because my Crohn's disease had advanced to a certain point. I found also that I was allergic to a lot of the standard Crohn's disease treatment medications, drugs like 6-mercaptopurine or Imuran, which means probably nothing to you. But what they do is they're immune suppressants and anti-inflammatories in one. Why immune suppressant? Well, the immune system I have is trying to kill my bowels. So the theory is if you suppress the immune cycle, the immune function, the immune response of your body, that then will mean that you have this sort of it'll help, whatever. It'll make it so, it'll make it so the Crohn's disease, and it is effective for some people. The problem is your immune system's kind of important. It does a thing. And so a lot of people end up dying because of the medication, because they get pneumonia or, some other serious but normally treatable illness that their immune system is no longer capable of fighting off because of these drugs. Anyway, so I'm on these drugs and they aren't really effective for me because my illness has progressed to a point where there's a lot of severe damage, and and I'm getting annual colonoscopies, and they're showing the damage. And eventually one day I went to work and I was really not feeling well. I was trying to get into better shape because my theory was that if I was strong, physically strong, like I was when I was younger, that maybe I'd be able to handle the illness better. Now, 10 years of driving truck takes its toll on a body. Like, I go from playing hockey multiple days a week and always being on my feet and always being active to basically sitting down all the time, 16 hours a day. And then when you're not sitting down, you crawl back into your bunk to get what little sleep you can get. The details of driving truck are out there. Look at them. It's not an easy job. Maybe not. It's not the physically the most demanding job, but long hours, very sporadic sleep, broken up in chunks. It's not a very friendly job on your body. I started driving truck at maybe 215 pounds. I've always been a stocky guy. When I stopped driving truck, I was 320 pounds. So yeah, gained a lot of weight driving truck. Put me in a very dangerous weight category for sure. And so one day in August of 2013, I go into my job and I'm not feeling well. And I had a high fever. It was a Friday. And so I managed to make it to lunchtime, and my boss, who was an awesome guy, just a great guy, comes to me and goes, "Tim, you got to go home, dude. You got to go home." So I went home, and I thought I had the flu or something. Well, I didn't. My bowel had weakened to the point where it ruptured, and I was developing what's called a septic infection. So 7 weeks I spent in the hospital. I had half of my large colon and a few feet of my small colon removed. And it took another 2 months of recovery from that because they basically had to open me all the way up and clean everything out. But I'm not being melodramatic. Death was a very, very serious concern. I mean, if you know what a septic infection is, that's not something you mess around with. And that's the first of a few times now that I became gravely ill. That was the only time, though, it was a direct result of Crohn's disease. The next 2 times were med reactions. But anyway, so I'm ill. I went back to work for a few months, but I couldn't do it. And eventually my boss and my doctor and my wife just said, "Hey, look, dude, you can't do this anymore." They were super supportive, but it sucked. I mean, it sucks. If you think that sitting at home alone during the day while your kids are at school and your wife's at work and you're sick, and if you think that's fun, like if you're, "Oh, dude, you don't have to work anymore and you get this paycheck." Well, I went from 60 to 70K a year driving truck to 15K a year on disability. So if you think that's a party, then you and I have very different ideals of what a party is. But anyway, so I'm sick. I'm at home. The surgery relieved the immediate threat, but I still felt like dump. Like I felt terrible. And so I started watching YouTube videos of people playing video games because one of the symptoms of Crohn's disease that still affects me the most is a form of arthritis called enteropathic arthritis. Basically, what Crohn's disease is your body, as your bowels are being attacked, you have these inflammation markers in your body, and they go way up, and it causes a lot of swelling and inflaming of all soft tissue, not just your bowels. And so, like my hands, they hurt all the time. Like if they give you the 1 to 10 pain scale, I'm always at a 5 or a 6, and sometimes worse. And because I have Crohn's disease, I can't take pain meds. I can't take Motrin or Aleve. So it's just something I kind of have to put up with because I'm not gonna. Well, the pain meds I can take are narcotics, and opioid crisis. I'm not gonna be taking those. Thank you very much. So as a guy who has always enjoyed playing video games, now my hands hurt so bad that it's very hard to do. So I started watching people play video games on YouTube and sort of vicariously living through them. And at one point, I'm sitting on my Xbox, and this is where I get to the point where how an illness led me to being a racing fan. And I'm going to murder his name, but I'm sitting on my Xbox, and the F1 2015 game was on sale, and it had shown up as a recommended title because I play sports games. And I'm like, hey, I have played racing games before. I've never been a racing fan, but I've played racing games before. I played the first Gran Turismo on my PlayStation back in the day. Played Gran Turismo 2, played Forza, played, anything I can get my hands on. I played a lot of NASCAR games, NASCAR Thunder games on the old Xbox. And I really enjoy racing video games. Like, I enjoyed those. I had fun with them to an extent. I didn't play them maybe as much as I did Madden or NHL or FIFA back in the day, but I did enjoy them. And so I'm like, oh, okay, hey, look, there's this F1 game. I wonder if it's any good. And so I searched YouTubers to see who was recording videos, and I found Ben Daly's YouTube page. He's Tia Metmerduk. I don't know if that's how you say it, but that's who it is. And he's a fantastic YouTube creator. Obviously, he's got a ton of subscribers. He's very successful, and I'm a big fan of his. And so, I guess the one person most directly responsible with this is him, because he did a video, and I'm watching him play these games, and it never occurred to me that he was using anything other than a gamepad. That's all I'd ever used. I had seen steering wheels in in shops or whatever. You see the whatever the grocery store, the retail level steering wheels are, and it never occurred to me to want to get one or anything. I just played using my gamepad like I'd always done. And he had done an unboxing video for a Thrustmaster wheel that they had sent him, or he had bought, or whatever, and started talking about force feedback and the what it does, and I was sort of hooked right there. I was like, oh wow, okay, cool, like that's an awesome concept, that you can feel what the road's doing and that you can sort of drive these cars. And from him I heard the term sim racing for the first time, and so I searched, and the next person I found was Jimmy Broadbent, who I think is probably the most successful YouTuber, probably the most successful sim racing YouTuber, and also fantastic. Just still watch him every day. Super huge fan of his, and but he does a whole different style of content than what the F1 YouTube community does, and now I'm seeing these sim titles for the first time, and I'm like, and I'm blown away by the things you can do, and I'm in. I want to get one. I'm in now. I'm stoked. So I start saving up, and I'm watching now. Now I'm ingesting all the YouTube content I can for sim racing, just all of it. And but not just that, I'm looking at real world racing. Ben Daly's YouTube channel showed me what the strategies F1 are. I knew F1 was a thing. Obviously, you can't be a sports fan and not know about F1 or not have heard of the most famous of the F1 drivers. Like Michael Schumacher and Ayrton Senna. I'd seen Senna's documentary about his life and tragic passing at Imola. And and then I was aware, because I've watched, in America, I've seen the Indy 500. I'd heard of people like Andretti and Unser, and I'd heard the famous names, because even though I'm not a racing fan, I'm aware of sport. So now I start diving into Formula One and what real Formula One is like. And I in 2016 I watched every race. 2017, yeah. And so I've watched every race since 2016, and I've really become a fan of Formula One, though it left me wanting a little bit. And so I branched out and started watching GT races, especially DTM. DTM is my favorite championship. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's easily digestible. I think if it was marketed right, it could be the most popular motorsport in the world. That's just my opinion. I'm biased because it's my favorite. I think the racing is awesome. It's bumper to bumper. Don't believe me? Watch race 1 from the Red Bull Ring last year, when Rene Rast passed like six drivers on the last lap to win the race. Granted, some of those were Audi drivers who were letting him win, but it was still damn exciting to watch. I think the racing, DTM and GT3 racing, provides some of the best wheel-to-wheel racing there is. Formula One can't do that. IndyCar does that a little bit more now that they've kind of toned down the aero package a little bit. But anyway, so now I'm a racing fan too. So now and I buy my first sim racing wheel. And so that's how I, and now I've started driving again. My hands hurt, but I find that I can maneuver a wheel a lot better than I can handle like holding a controller. Still, on my worst days, I can still sit down and race. Um, and yeah, I'm that's how almost kicking off led me to become a sim racing fanatic, and here I am. Uh, I'm much healthier now. I am more than 100 pounds lighter than I was at my heaviest. I have a treatment regime now that has Crohn's disease fairly well controlled, though I have had more surgeries and more bits removed, and that'll happen more. I mean, that's the chances of me having to have more surgery in the future are far higher than the chances of me living the rest of my life, hopefully a somewhat many multiple decades to come, and not needing more surgery. Like this is a progressive illness; it's incurable. So barring some medical breakthrough, you know, this is just the reality of me. Um, but yeah, sometimes there are silver linings and things. I got real sick. I lost my profession, but I was able to go back to college online because you can't sit in a classroom. If you have to get up and go to the bathroom every 10 minutes, you're going to be interruptive. You're going to be disruptive. You're not going to learn much. So I had to achieve my degree online, which is fine. You make the best of what you got, and so yeah, I finished college. It's a lifetime goal of mine. The first person in my family really to do that. Maybe. On my dad's side of the family, a lot of college graduates. My mom's side of the family, not so many, but my mom and my dad didn't go to college, so I felt like that was a little bit of an accomplishment. I think finishing college is an accomplishment. Anyway, so I did that. More than that, though, my wife and I have 3 sons and a daughter, and for my older 2 sons, I missed out on a lot because I was driving truck, which I had to do to pay the bills. But for these past 5 years, I've been the stay-at-home dad, and any work I do, I work from home. So I've gotten to be the dad 24/7, and that has been the best experience of my life. And I've been able to re-examine how I behave as a man and how I interact with my wife, and I've been able to just sort of be a better member of the family. So if you're out there struggling with something, try to find the silver lining. I know it's not easy. I know there were times when I was very sick and feeling real low, and depression comes with chronic illness. I was never a depressed person before, and I definitely had some battles since I got sick. But there's a silver lining to everything. There always is. There's always a positive that can be gleaned from any situation. There's a lesson to be learned. There's something that you can come out the other side with and be a stronger person for. But you gotta want it. You gotta want to look at it. And so I went from being a pretty normal average guy to now I attack every day with enthusiasm, positivity. I wake up in the morning thankful for another day. I go to bed at night thankful that I got to experience another day. And I'm not telling you need to do that, but it sure has made my life a lot easier. It sure has made my outlook a lot brighter. And it's just made me a lot happier person. As well as having a hobby like sim racing and being able to turn to a community that includes people like Jimmy Broadbent and Gamer Muscle and Random Call Sign and Matt Malone and Empty Box and Ben Daly and Areva and Tom 97 HD, and I mean just so many people producing great content, helping people start off, helping people get started in the hobby. I mean, just YouTube search best way to get into sim racing, and you'll see you'll see tons of videos about, cheap wheels you can buy, what you should avoid, tips and tricks, whatever. And those videos are really, and part of why I want to make these videos, I want to share my experience, because maybe somebody will see this and it'll help them. And also, it's a creative outlet for me. I was a musician for a lot of my life, and I can't play guitars anymore. So, I missed that creative expression, and this gives me sort of an opportunity to maybe be creative again, even if nobody ever watches it. And a little bit of a somber reason for making these videos. I have 4 kids. My youngest is 9. She'll turn 10 soon. And I'm painfully aware of my mortality. And knowing that I want to make these videos so that if for some reason I'm not here, my kids can come to this channel and they can see me and they can hear my voice and they can sort of see what I'm passionate about, right? Obviously, they know I'm passionate about them. My wife and my kids are more important than anything else. Like, anything. My wife and I have been together since I was 15 years old. We celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary this year. I couldn't live without her. And so, when you see a guy like Total Biscuit and what he went through, that's when I got the idea sort of to do this YouTube channel and to record these videos. Not because I want hundreds of thousands of subscribers and I want to make a living on it, but because I want there to be a record of me, so that if for some reason I'm not here, my kids can have a little bit more than a photograph. So, hopefully that's not something that ever materializes. Obviously, I hope that doesn't materialize. But I'm an honest guy, and I wanted to put that out there. So, anyway, this is dragged down a little longer than I expected. So that's how you can delineate a path from illness to sim racer, and a few of the other motivations I have for making these videos. Anyway, if you've watched this, thank you very much, and I hope you're happy. I hope you're healthy, and just be rad.